Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. And this video today is on a review on the Fixx's third album from 1984, Phantoms. I did get a chance to review, this is their second time on the channel. I did review their debut album called The Shuttered Rooms, which I gave a 52 out of 100. I was pretty, I don't know if I was really, which I think is an okay album. I think Shuttered Rooms is an okay album, which is sad because there's some really good songs on there. I think of Red Skies and Catch My Fall, but not too much else. There might be a song or two on there that I'm forgetting, but I can't remember if Outside's on that song on that album or if that's on Reach the Beach. But I do like Outside as well. But just kind of a little bit of a disappointing album. I thought I'd say that was a good album at least, or at least a pretty good album. In some ways, I look back at the score when I was doing this review, and I was like, was I too harsh on that last album? Giving it a 52 out of 100, saying it's okay. I looked at it and I kind of agreed with myself that no, I don't think I was. I think this album obviously I feel like is better. And I find that strange because a lot of times, especially in the period of 1981 or 1984 when this was made, and 1981 when Shuttered Rooms was made, or 82, sometimes I generally like to go with the earlier music because it's a little bit more raw and maybe, a lot of times the debut albums of bands are some of their best albums. In some respect, it's, you catch them at their more um, their most original and maybe their most creative and most raw period, but it's strange that I don't with the Fixx, that this album is better. It seemed to me that they got better through Reach the Beach, their second album, and then maybe a little bit more fine tuned on Phantoms. May not be as good as Reach the Beach off the top of my head, but and then they kind of got into Walkabout and their other albums. But I feel like this is the last album that was sort of like avant-garde in a little bit of a way, and sort of a little bit raw. And when you got to Walkabout, I think was a little bit maybe too polished. But a lot of times I favor the band's earlier work, and I'm a little surprised, but not fully, that I don't with this with the Fixx, because I do like the Phantoms album better than Shuttered Rooms. So I'm happy to say this album will be a better review and better score than their first album. Um, One thing about the Fixx that I find very curious is that, and I find it a little weird, how little of success they had in England. Like, when you think of, like, as an American growing up in the 80s and loving New Wave and remembering the Fixx when they came out really well, even though I was only like 6 or 7 years old, I remember the Fixx very, very well. And there's a really good video of them, like 1983 or something like that. They're doing like a 15-minute, 60-minute live concert in front of a crowd of maybe 1,000 or so, and it's in this like club, and it's a really cool performance, and it really shows you how good they were around that time. And I remember watching that live when I was probably 7 or 8 years old in 83, 84. I think it was after, I think it was before Reach the Beach. I'm trying to remember if it had One Thing Leads to Another. Um, I think it did, because I want to say I remember it having Sign of the Fire on there, but I'm not 100%, but really a good concert. And if you see their concerts early on in the 80s, they have, the keyboard player is playing some really old of the time keyboards, and they have like a nice moody sound and a good funk in there. And I was always really surprised, as going, when you go back and look at the chart success that they had, like an England band that has more No, it's not a first that an England band has more success in America than it does in UK. You think of like Depeche Mode as a perfect example of that, but when you think of like in America, the Fixx had two top 20 albums, three top 40 albums, and six top 40 songs. In England, none of their albums even went to the top 50, and none of their singles went into the top 50. So it's like a 9 day difference, and they were from England. So it's strange why the Fixx had no success in England. I just find that really strange that I don't. I mean, usually you see a difference, like again, like Depeche Mode, but still, I mean, Enjoy the Silence made the top 10 in England, or at least the top 20. Like they still had some hits. I mean, I think CU was like a top 20 album, 20 song. I would imagine that Depeche Mode had at least maybe just as many top 40 songs in America as they did in Europe. But as far as the major success of touring and things like that, like they were huge in America. But I just find it interesting that the Fixx had such little success in England with the chart success. I'm curious if anybody has a opinion on that, or maybe an idea of why. Do you think it's record label related? Is it MCA Records? Were they on MCA Records most of their career, and that's more of an American label? I would have to think it's from a distribution standpoint, and obviously maybe a press standpoint, but maybe a record label A&R type missed opportunity that they had. I don't even think one thing leads to another. I don't know if that was this track. I have this number of 54 in my head, and maybe that's the album, but just really strange that one thing lead to another would be a top 5 song in America and not even be in the top 50 in England, where this is the second wave of British invasion, which is the Duran Durans, your Japan, your The Cure. This is the second invasion of British music, and for an English band, the top 5 song not to even hit the top 50 in your home country is just, I don't know. It's just kind of like mind boggling in some ways. Um, the band overall, their sound, like many of you guys that know the Fixx, is a really good balance of synth pop, catchiness. There's a little bit of funkiness. There's a little bit of moodiness in there. Sometimes I feel like the Fixx, they try a little too hard to make a hit, and that's sometimes the corniness of the Fixx, or maybe the lack of direction they have. Maybe sometimes, um, maybe the feeling that they were just making pop music and sort of not, you know, being sort of more geared towards or focusing on more of having a cult following, because they can have a cool edge to their sound. Cy Cumin's voice, it's a really good voice. He has a really good voice, and it's really kind of eerie, but sometimes I mean, most of the time it works really well with the music. Sometimes the music doesn't really have the same power as his voice does. Um, again, sometimes they have a cool edge sound to them, and I think when they hit their sound, they really hit it really well. Um, they hit that kind of level. Unfortunately, as some of these songs score suggests, there's far too much up and down for them. There's really good songs, and then there's not really good songs. They don't really have a consistency, and I think that's kind of why they don't really have much of a cult following these days, as they are to other bands from the '80s. Even I think Psychedelic Furs has a better cult following and still tours, where the Fixx, I don't think the Fixx can necessarily tour. Even though the Fixx had probably more top 40 success than even Psychedelic Furs, I don't think they can really do a tour nowadays and tour 20, maybe 10, 15, 20 cities in America like Psychedelic Furs could. for psychedelic furs could, and that's kind of on the middle tier of new wave bands popularity wise. I feel like comparing them to psychedelic furs, Duran Duran or Depeche Mode or you know maybe some of the maybe not to the level of Depeche Mode because they can still almost tour stadiums if they said this is their farewell tour, but kind of in your New Order kind of still play 10, 20 cities and possibly sell out. I think Psychedelic Furs on a little bit smaller scale than New Order, but could do like the five to 7,000, five to maybe 3 to 5,000, 3 to 7,000 seat arenas. Psychedelic Furs could still, for the most part, sell out. I don't think the Fixx could really do that, and that's because they're not really. I don't really think they did a good job of having the direction and geared towards having a cult following and sort of standing for, or maybe even not standing for something, but of having some sort of image. Like, at least, when I think of uh, Mr. Butler's, I can't think of his first name, Mr. Butler, Psychedelic Furs, like, um, he has a strong stage presence. He has a good image. He has a good rock sort of post punk style and image and stage presence and sound and stuff and I think Psy has that, but I don't think the band really has that. Like, what is the Fixx really? What's their persona like? What style of music are they? Are they just new wave? Are they pop? Or are they? You know what I mean? It's just it's. I think they probably just left a little bit of opportunity on the table when it comes to really solidifying who they were. And that maybe that's unfortunate because there are other bands like that I could kind of compare and fix to. I think of like Icehouse would be a good version. An overseas band that sort of mixed new wave and sort of alternative rock and had some success, but really couldn't tour on themselves because they didn't really nail down what they are, like, and sort of maybe back it up or maybe continue to tour. I don't know, but um, the Fixx still had some success through the '80s, but they can't tour now. I don't think by themselves. Um, but there's some strong songs on this album. I think more consistent than Shuttered Rooms, their debut album. I really like Facing the Wind, Less Cities, Moving People. The band is a lot better when they go for smoother tracks and a little bit of a touch of pop than really kind of these kind of shorter songs. And that's kind of a little bit of the opportunity. I'll talk about a little bit about the opportunity. They always do some, for the most part, they do some catchy choruses. When I think of Less Cities, Moving People, Sunshine in the Shade, which was a single, the track Wish, which I think probably should have been single. It does really remind me of Secret Separation, a track that came out on the Walkabout. That was a minor hit in America. I think it went top 30. Wish really reminds me of that. I think Wish probably should have been a single. It's probably the most catchiest song on the album. It may not. It's not my favorite, but it might be the most catchy. It seems like it has the most opportunity to be a hit, in my opinion. There's definitely some solid keyboard sounds on here. Again, Less Cities, Moving People. The atmosphere as well on that is good, and the atmosphere on Facing the Wind, and also Woman on a Train. There's some good rhythm and surprisingly some funkiness on their tracks. Um, Sometimes they almost have like a little shot. I would say ska, shaw, uh, a ska or a shuffle to it, but there is kind of like a looseness to their rhythm. Even though they're really synth pop, that I find that is cool. Sometimes they have some cool percussion on their songs, like Sunshine and Shade and Woman on a Train. Or sorry, Sunshine in the Shade and Woman on the Train. It has some good percussion sounds. When I look at the track ratings, the first track, Lose Faith, it's not bad. It's 1.3 stars, 1.75 stars. Less cities moving, more moving people. One of my favorites on here. 3.5 stars. Sunshine in the Shade, 2.75 stars. Woman on a Train, 3 stars. Wish, 3 stars. And then a couple, some kind of rough songs in here. Just some okay ones, really. Lost in the Battle Overseas, 1 star. Question, 1 star. In Suspense, 1.5 stars. And then it gets better. Facing the Wind, my favorite song on the album, which I think is excellent. It's compact, but I wish it was a little bit longer, but definitely makes you want to hear it. Love the atmosphere on it and everything like that. Love the way it's sung. Psy's voice, perfect example of how good his voice can be on a nice moody track like this. 4 stars. Are We Ourselves, which was a single, 2 stars. I Will, good song, my third favorite, 3.25 stars. And then Phantom Living, 2.25 stars. When I look at the overall opportunities of the album, this is where I feel like the rubber meets the road. And when, because I think of Fixx as a good band. Again, I have their first 4 albums. I don't have anything after that, but I have their prime time of their career, in my opinion. So I feel like I know their music fairly well, pretty well. I'd probably say very, very well, but I get their overall sound and their direction and everything like that, or maybe lack of direction. And I feel like I know their strong suits and I know their opportunities. Like, Psy's voice is really good. They have some funk in there. They have some good keyboard sounds. They have some good catchy choruses. They have some nice balance of pop and rock. I mean, new wave and rock. But sometimes I feel like they should kind of edit, like, like edit themselves a little bit. Like 12 songs on here, and there's some bummer songs on here. Like, they should have edited themselves. Like, when you think of their singles, Sunshine of the Shade, which is a good track, it's almost a crime. It's 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. Why is it so short? Are We Ourselves is a single, 2 minutes and 27 seconds. It's just kind of. Then you think of, like, Woman on a Train, for example. Like, if they took off a couple tracks on this and experimented a little bit more with some really good rhythms that they have on here, like Woman on a Train has some really good opportunities on here. There's something special going on in Woman on a Train, but it doesn't really delve into it and become anything more. Like, there's really no experimentation on this album. There's maybe like 20 seconds of a moody intro in Facing in the Time. Like, they have some cool instrumentation going on from different people. Some good sounds going on. They don't take advantage of Psy's voice enough for me. They don't expand the tracks. Everything's like nice and concise. And when you have like Lost in the Battle Overseas, that track in Question, and then In Suspense, and I'm giving him, and then even Lose Face, which I think are all 4 tracks, all underneath 2 stars, that are all underneath good. Like, I feel like you could edit yourselves a little bit and take some tracks off and experiment a little bit with the other better tracks. Some of these tracks should have been 4, 5, 6 minutes, and give the album and the songs a little bit more to breathe. It's hard to take on 5, 6, 2 minute, 3 minute songs, and really kind of digest them. There's no, the pacing on the album is too quick. There's not enough atmosphere on these tracks. There's not enough great expanding on the sounds, expanding on the songs. Sometimes I wish the Fixx had a little bit more edge to them, because Psy has such a cool voice. Maybe a missed opportunity there. But adding up the stars, 29, and well, actually, it's kind of when you break down my stars, right? You have 5 songs that are good. Sorry, I'm way off on my. I didn't add up the rest of the stars. But anyways, I have underneath underneath 2 stars, 2 stars and below. I have 5 songs. Like almost half the album is under good for me. You know, but I add up the stars, 29 and a quarter stars divided by 12. It's 2.43, and that's right around 59. If I'm not mistaken, that's 2.43 is uh, yeah, 2.343 is right around a 59, 58. But I gave it a couple extra points because I do think there's some opportunities on here, and there's some stuff in here that you can, some music in here that you can enjoy, and it just has some potential that you feel like is there, and you catch these glimpses where I feel like this is a good album. So I gave it a 62 out of 100. I gave it a couple extra points. Um, I feel like I just want more from the Fixx. It's there, but it's just not there for me. Like I feel like you can get like pieces of them and songs here and some brilliance of here. Like, I mean, I can't tell you what a great track. How much I can tell you that a great track like "To Face the Wind" is. "Facing the Wind," excuse me, and "I Will," and just the opportunities on "Wish" and the opportunities on "Woman on a Train," and "If Sunshine in the Shade" was longer, and then the great song that is "Less Cities, More Moving People." Like that's three, four, five, six, and "I Will," the track "I Will." That's 6 songs that I feel are really close to being all excellent. If they could have expanded upon their ideas, make the tracks longer, make them more moody, take off some of the worst tracks, you know, edit yourselves a little bit more and not have 12 tracks on an album. You know, I just feel like a couple of those tracks in there that are okay are verging on kind of suck, to be honest with you. I mean, "Lost in Battle Overseas," I gave 1 star, and "Question," I gave 1 star. Maybe I was being a little generous on those because I do like the overall sound of the band, but when you compare those to other tracks, they don't really do anything for me at all. I'm just like, they're okay, I guess. But I could easily be like, man, they kind of suck. And give it like a half star or even less. And then this album would be below good. But I feel like it's a good album. There's 6 songs on here that are very good, I feel like. Yeah, I mean, even though I gave "Sunshine and Shade" 2 and 3/4 stars, it's only because it's short. It's 2.5 minutes. They should have done even the chorus a couple more times, which is a stronger part of the song, and it could have been 3 stars. So I feel like there's 6 songs on here that are very good. So half the album is very good. So for half the album to be very good and this album not be good would be, and even be less, not even be a rating under very good would be a crime. So I feel like I feel like it's there. What I think of the overall of this album, though, it's a good album that somewhat spoils a very good singer with a unique voice and an above average band who could have used a better direction and some editing, but then also could have used some more experimentation. And that kind of just encapsulates what I say about what I said about the whole album. Just some better direction, some more editing and a little bit more developing the songs and kind of more, if I think the Fixx could have been if they would have been a little bit more geared towards darker music, I think the Fixx could have been really cool. Like it's all there. His voice, the keyboard sounds, the good bass lines, catchy choruses. I feel like they could have been a really cool, like more like early dark wave album. Dark wave, maybe not like dark wave, like theatrical, but like they could have been a good darker new wave album, a new wave act. I feel like, and I feel like they had when you think of like Red Skies at Night, right? They're talking about like war and um, their other track from the same album. I said it before. I'm blanking on the name, but it seems like they do talk about like war and and uh, God, I wish I could blank on that name of that song, but Catch My Fall. Like it does feel like their lyrics and his singing and his conviction and his singing and what he's singing, it has like some merit in there. It has some depth in there. So I feel like they could have just gone with that a little bit more and been a little bit more experimental and not so poppy. I think they could have had some really brilliant albums in here. But as you have it, you have some really good songs on here. But I don't know if the Fixx really have an excellent album. I know Reach the Beach will be my favorite rated album by the Fixx. I know that for a fact. I think it'll be in the 70s. But man, some of these early albums probably should have been in the 70s too if they could have had better direction. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Fixx's 1984 album Phantoms. I think it's a good album. 62 out of 100. All right, thanks so much.